Welcome back to the Get.Free.Podcast. I'm your host, Sharifa Rowe, where we get free so we can be free. It is March and it is Women's Month, and we have an exciting show. I know that I owe y'all these last two shows from January and February, where we brought in the new year and talk about the election as well as talked about Lotus Liberation. It's a one-woman show over here, and I'm doing my best with Brian supporting with Black River Life Media. But we'll get it to you, and we're just going to keep chugging along. And if you get a bunch of episodes at once, it'll be what it is. But we're going to just keep going and posting and sharing as we can. I always want to start with updates and kind of my own personal reflections. I guess first off, I already shared that I owe you some episodes and that we're still doing the monthly podcast, but I'm also trying to decide if I'm going to do a quicker cadence, one with Brian and then maybe one without, because right now Brian is doing all of my producing, but I thought maybe I might freestyle and just, fail forward and try some things and see how it goes so that I can build my muscle more. So that's an update. I've also been healing with nature. I think I shared that I'm trying to build my relationship with nature. I realized that I did not have a good relationship with nature. I mean, to the point that when I looked at trees, all I could think of was lynchings. Like, would that tree be strong enough for lynching? When I thought about going and hiking, I would have like visions of like trying to escape. All of these memories that I had was really around nature, was really around survival or escaping or harm or violence. And so I've been working on my relationship with nature and going on these nature walks. And every time I'm walking on the soil and it like hits I guess the groove of my foot, what is that? Your arch? It feels like a hug, y'all. Like literally it feels like a hug where like my heart will feel like a little softer. It's so weird, but and I think I'm becoming friends with a hummingbird. I see the same couple hummingbirds. And the other day, it started to hop the bushes with me as I was walking. And I was like, I think I'm becoming friends with this hummingbird because now I've been walking now for like almost 5 months or so. And so anyway, I'm just excited. I know it seems a little crazy. I'm also hugging this verde tree that now showed me a heart in the base of the tree. Like it's a heart from like one of its limbs was cut, and I would stop and touch it or hug it. And I look down at the base and it's a heart on the base of the tree. So I also been reading this book, Braiding Sweetgrass. You probably can't see it. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I hope I'm saying that right. But they're an indigenous woman that is also, I think, like a biologist or, what's the one for ecologist maybe. And it is poetry in motion. And it's just so beautiful where they have this Thanksgiving kind of like ceremony where they thank all of the living beings of the earth. So anyway, that's where I am with that. Also, I know I've been struggling with posting and with getting stuff out because I think I shared that I'm neurodivergent. I have ADHD. And so it's important for me to have systems in place. But I also moved to Arizona because I have seasonal affect depression. And what that means is that when it is not as sunny out or when it gets cold out, my mood goes down, and which is the other reason why I've been doing these nature walks. And so I just been trying to keep my, the way I really get through it is being Delulu, where you have a little bit of delusion and a little bit of hopefulness kind of mixed together. And so that's been interesting of trying to balance my ADHD with seasonal affect depression. And as I'm talking about this, I wonder if I should do an episode around like mental health and seasonal depression. So holler at me if y'all think, or somebody who might think they might be interested in that. My girls, y'all, I'm raising 3 teens and nobody told me about the patriarchy that is in your house. The internalized patriarchy is real right now, raising 3 teens. But I'm getting through it. They're doing great. I just think I'm scared because they're becoming young adults. And I felt like I knew what to do. But then that transition from becoming a teenager to a young adult it's scary, y'all. Like, nobody really talks about it. Like, to have somebody taking care of you, taking care of you, taking care of you, and then that transition to taking care of yourself, it is weird. It is weird. But I'm getting through it. The girls are doing good. I guess maybe I shouldn't be calling them girls anymore. I'm figuring out a new word for them. Are they young ladies now? I don't know. They probably wouldn't like that either. So I'm gonna just keep calling them girls till I figure something else out. But that's happening. I've been having this new analysis, and I'm going to talk about it with our new guest today. I am now under the impression that nature was colonized first, and then for its extract its resources, and then the people closest to nature was then colonized or had violence against to disrupt that. And so I think that was women and maybe like tribal indigenous people, but definitely women, because this nuclear family business is not good for women, actually, because that's not how it was done before. We used to commune when we had babies. We commune when we were raising children. It was very communal, and we kind of just passed the men around so that we could have the babies and probably pleasure too. And I actually think that's why monogamy is so hard for men, for some men, because of that history. But then after that, I think that we became a part of eroding our community. So we've been emulating the wealthy. So we essentially replace community with transactional purchases. So before, when we used to raise the community together, raise children together, we now purchase nannies. Before, when we used to help each other if someone was sick or if someone needed something done around their house, now we have a handyman or a handywoman, or now we have a lawn person. And so we've just become very transactional. And ever since I read about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, taking from Blackfoot Nation, and flipped it upside down and making self-actualization further from us and making basic needs the foundation, I was like, oh, what have they not tricked us on? They've been tricking us forever on everything. And so now I'm going to be working in April to have a no spending money April. I'm going to focus on community. I've already started a little bit. I've been picking lemons from my friend's lemon tree instead of getting it from the grocery store. I've been going to Sankofa. Shout out to Sankofa. They did a raised garden bed in drawers. So I got a little nature garden in a drawer in my backyard. And I'm really working on, even when I'm meeting with people, I'm saying, let's go for a walk instead of going out to eat. Let me come to your house. What can I do for you? Because I think the more we start unlearning this idea that we're going to purchase our relationships and build back to community, I really think the better off we'll be. Because if we really think about it, the earth really provides everything. The food, the water, the materials we make for our clothes, our houses. And the big scam has been tricking us to turn away from ourselves, turn away from each other, turn away from nature, and replace it with money that comes from the trees. The money comes from the trees, y'all. So anyway, that is my reflection. That's what I've been thinking about. I'll talk about more of it as we continue these conversations on the Get Free podcast. But without further ado, I want to introduce a friend, a neighbor, a person in the work, Dr. Kathy Obear. Dr. Kathy Obear is a nationally recognized expert in helping leaders, change agents, and facilitators develop the capacity to create equitable, inclusive, and racially just organizations. I don't know if she's still currently the president of the Center for Transformation of Change. Yes, she is. I'm seeing her nod her head. She is the current co-founder of the Social Justice Training Institute, and an intensive professional development experience to deepen the capacity to dismantle the dynamics of racism and white supremacy. Excuse me. And I have been in her presence not only as a guest on her show back in 2021, but a part of these community roundtables that she hosts for white folks to have conversations about racism and how to show up and how it is impacting their lives. And she has this book called "But I'm Not a Racist," and also Turning the Tide, if you're interested in any of her publications. But without further ado, please welcome Dr. Kathy Obear.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored to be in dialogue with you. And boy, your reflections were hitting home.
Oh,
all the ways that I was colonized myself, believed, worked for the money, the man, as they say. And it's been decades of trying to heal and get free. And so, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Well, let's just start with, well, first of all, how do you identify and where are you located? And what does getting free mean to you? Or what's been some of your get free journey?
So Kathy Obear, I use she, they pronouns, and I'm here in Denver, Colorado, where, especially in these times, I've been looking for more homes to do social justice, organizing, change work. And so I'm actually going to a 6-hour training this afternoon with a faith-based organization. And I say that to say, because I grew up just drinking the Kool-Aid, metaphorically. I grew up middle class, white, I could keep going. Didn't know I was queer, bought into the negative stereotypes of being born female. So getting free for me was decades of buying in, trying to climb the ladder, work addiction, trying to fit in, getting small so that I would be okay. But then, I guess the universe decided it was time. And so early 20s, I came out and realized I was queer and started to realize that there was more sexism and homophobia. And so as I started doing those trainings, and I was working in higher ed, I just kind of kept waking up a little bit. And it was probably another 8 to 10 years before I started realizing through education, it's like, oh, I'm white. I got class privilege. I got able-bodied privilege, U.S. citizenship. So the broadening, I was doing diversity training, but mostly out of my marginalized identities. All that to say, it's been a long journey of folks in workshops, folks I was partnering with to hold up a mirror or tell me stories. And I think particularly around whiteness and being white, I really started to want to focus on dismantling the racist attitudes of white supremacist beliefs in me and in society. When my friends and colleagues of color I would just start hearing more and more stories of racism. And I'm like, I've said that. I've done that. I've stayed silent. And then more lately in the last few years around class, I've had some more awakening. So all that to say, I've been on a journey for decades. I'm still on a journey. And I feel grateful that I can use speaking, training, consulting to help organizations, groups, individuals to move farther on their journey. But I'm still doing self-work, daily, kind of like you, I'm gardening. It's like, ooh, there's a racist thought. Ooh, there's a sizist thought. Ooh, internalized sexism is still there. So daily journey.
Yeah, it runs deep. And you know what? I was listening to the podcast, the radio show when you interviewed me, and some of the things I was saying. I think the first part was really about me being afraid. Oh yeah, there's my dogs, Moxie and Jax. Of course, they're gonna get theirs in. I was afraid of talking to you, and I was sharing that why I was afraid that when you communicate with people about this stuff, depending on where they are, because at that point I didn't know very much about you. I was just meeting you, and I was just like, oh, why does she even want to talk to me? And I was just like, oh, the language. Once you start giving people language or start getting people saying like, oh, let me understand or pick your brain, I was like afraid of like being misrepresented or misinterpreted. And I look at kind of the attack on DEI right now, or the attack, which by the way, Kathy, I feel like I'm good with. I'm actually glad that they attacked it.
Okay, just say more.
I'm glad they attacked it because I think we were placating. I think we were trying to use language to bring people in without saying what it is. And what it actually is human rights. That's what Sojourner Truth called it. That's what Frederick Douglass called it. That's what all of our greats called it. It's human rights. And I feel like for the first time in history, it's an opportunity to align movements. I mean, kind of like before MLK's assassination, state-sanctioned assassination, when he was going to do the Poor People's March, I feel like that's what the attack on DEI is doing right now. That they're attacking everyone at once, and for the first time in history since probably the 60s or the civil rights movement, it's an opportunity to align under human rights. Because whether we're talking about housing, transportation, food injustice, healthcare, women reproductive rights, access to the vote,
environment, we could keep going.
We're talking about human rights. We're talking about human rights. So I feel like, okay, yeah, I'm glad, because you're going to make us get to the thing, the root, you know what I mean? And the root is dehumanization. And I didn't have that awareness before. And so I'm kind of grateful for it.
Well, that's a real helpful reframe, because I've been, but similarly, I've been challenging folks to say, so what do you believe and stand for? So instead of using the term DEI, or it's like, what are we working to create? And, freedom is so that all people, as you said, can live their core values, can be their full selves, contribute with their talents, so long as what they're doing isn't harming others, and then we figure out in community. I loved your reflections about how do we recreate what our ancestors had before colonization and all the extraction and all the imperialism.
We've been gaslit so much, Kathy.
I have.
We've been gaslit to be like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, but money is actually made of what comes from trees, which is paper, right? And or that being hard, like being tough, means that you got strong balls, but we know balls are weak. If you graze the balls on a man, they fall down instantly. Vaginas are strong. They shoot out human beings. Kick a vagina and see if you don't get lots of a bone. Okay, so we've just allowed ourselves to take on. I know that's a silly like analogy or a silly example, but my point is like we have just like been like, oh, okay, even though we know that it doesn't make sense. Oh, we need money. Why do we need money when we can grow food? Although now they're getting hit, because I started picking lemons from my friend's lemon tree, because I've been noticing that they're selling seedless lemons now. Seedless lemons, just like seedless watermelon. Because you used to be able to go to the grocery store, get the seed. If you really wanted to, you can plant those seeds and recreate something. And now they're engineering seedless lemons like they did watermelons. Now I'm like, oh, I should have never failed for that, for the convenience. That's what it is. The fake convenience that is actually deadly.
Some of the dynamics around Medicare and Social Security, I saw some leaders say to someone who was in their probably late 60s, 70s, why aren't you out working? And it all connects to me is that there are these few oligarchs, authoritarian, fascist, very uber billionaires, trillionaires, that just want to have extraction from humans. And I believe that. I felt if I worked harder, if I worked long hours, burned out, those were badges I wore. And to think that they're just trying to even do it even more now, to say, let's get children working in factories and really dangerous situations, and elders working when physically it's dangerous for them, mostly. I just didn't see how classism, racism, sexism, patriarchy, all the oppressions were so, So freedom is getting clear of just healing from all those messages, those socializations. And it's gonna take a lot of us doing a lot of healing circles to do that.
I believe that's right. I think before, people used to think like it was going to be this big overhaul system thing over top. But now I believe that it's going to be these vignettes of community from each other, connecting, creating, and then bubbling up what could be universal, not starting from the universal and down. But I'm going to switch a little bit because I used your document, Common Unproductive Biased Behaviors of Some/Many White People That Perpetuate Racist Dynamics and Structural Racism. And Kathy, when I did this with a client. When I zoomed down that this had 79
and counting
behaviors. And so I decided to do it myself. Don't you know I had all 79? I either had an example of something that happened to me or that I directly witnessed of all 79 behaviors.
Wow.
I was so like, I was thinking like I might have 16. You know what I mean? Like, it's 79, Kathy. I was thinking like, oh, you know, maybe I'll have like 10 to 15. Every last one. First, I want to know, how did you come up with this list? Who helped you come up with this list? It's a fantastic list. I'm going to tell you up front, the organization I did it with, the white women were not receptive.
Oh, no. I wasn't for a while. I got it.
They was not receptive. And in fact, I couldn't even say the thing that I wanted to say. I wanted to say, y'all are so mad at the new president, but you are him and he is you.
Well, that'll give you friends from this podcast. But the truth is, every one of those 79, if I were to look at them again, I could relate to either I've done those racist behaviors, I've stayed silent, or I have the racist beliefs still in me, or at times that I could have. I got to shout out the Social Justice Training Institute, especially Reverend Dr. Jamie Washington and some other colleagues. 25 years we've been holding 2 sessions, 30, 40, 50 people every time to come do that self-work inner healing. And it's been, over time, my willingness to hear folk of color, indigenous folks, and hear just the cumulative impact over and over stories. Plus then the anti-racism sessions I did, particularly after George Floyd was murdered, the participants. So I just collected it up. And the white folk, when we get in these white accountability groups, by the way, all 4 of my books, free downloads on my website, drkathyobear.com, and the latest is white accountability groups. White folks, when we get together and honest, saying, yes, I've done this, and then they're like, and I've also done this, so then I would just add them to the list. So it's thousands of people over a couple decades, and all I did was pull it together. And folks can find, 50 different, at least, worksheets at my website, /leading. So just free resources, like you found, to take into their communities, faith groups, to do this communal healing together.
Yeah, and I've been trying to have patience with my palm colored folks. I've been trying to call I'm trying to stop calling white people and start calling them palm colored.
Palm colored, okay. Bring it on.
I call them palm colored because I think that there is a certain amount of dehumanization that happened to them historically, and a certain level of separation that they have forgotten that they are connected. And sometimes we forget that we're connected. And I feel like nature put it on my spirit that you think you're disconnected. You're not disconnected. And so I've been calling them palm colored people, so I can remember that they're connected to my palm. And that I'm connected, even when I disagree, because I do think that there's an art of civil discourse that we've lost with social media, with us not being as communal as we once were, us not, relying on each other the way that we once were. And so, I mean, I'm starting to think that there is, we already say hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. So what is the hurts or the thing that, because even when you interviewed me, I talked about that compassion of that palm colored people have to remember what they lost before they became white. So they gave up whatever identity, culture. That's why you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have a culture."
Mm-hmm.
That's not true.
No.
That's not true. And so I loved this list. I felt like I should have been using it long ago. The way I used it was I allowed that the staff to share what they had experienced in the organization without them having to say, "You did this." They were able to say, number 12, number 13. Number 12 was diminish, downplay the reality of recent racist behaviors and incidents by expressing, let me see, by expressing shock and dismay. I can't believe this is still happening in 2025 to avoid further exploration of the negative impact on people of color.
Yeah. I've been that white person. I could be that in a second. And we could broaden it to immigration, refugee status, the dynamics that are happening with the horrific treatment of folks that are new Americans. So, I mean, we could apply to any category difference. You just shift the language. I think the dynamics are similar.
Yeah. And some of these, like one of the ones, they won't be a good fit here. I didn't experience that, but that's what I experienced as my child, who is differently, it has autism. When before we got her diagnosed with autism, she was at a Montessori school, and they were like, "Mind you, Montessori is supposed to be for people who are differently abled." They said, "Oh, she's not a good fit." You know what I mean? So even in education, in the workplace, and it's a part of the societal norms. This was the list. Refuse to recognize racist dynamics and dismiss the racist experience of people of color.
I would blame people of color at the individual level. It's like, well, what did they do? And even today, if I hear a dynamic, I'm like, well, what did they say or do? So that whole individualism, what happens to you is your fault, ingrained in me since I was a young pup. I think that's part of the healing to realize it's, I'm not telling you anything, but the people, it's systems, culture, socialization that has us blame people for the circumstances. Now, I'm not saying that my lack of work, my lack of attention didn't contribute to my life, but the sexism, the homophobia, the sizeism was significant in my experiences. And I just believed everything was my fault. If I just worked harder, controlled things better, went along, I could succeed too in this capitalist system.
And you can, but you just can't be whole.
I can't have humanity. I sold my humanity.
We've sold our humanity.
I did. Traded it.
And I think that is the part that is lost on my palm colored people. That they were, their contribution was to sell their humanity, to have a blind eye to others' humanity.
I drank. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you drank, you overate,
overworked to fill that void of that. And I wonder how many palm-colored folk overuse different substances, because if we really sat with the pain we see, stay silent around, and contribute to, it's just so racking of our human. So, yeah.
But I think it's all of us, and I think that's what we're learning now. I feel like in my reflection at the top of the podcast, I was trying to say that it's not just palm-colored people. We've all been duped.
Yeah.
We've all been duped, and they've been trying to create. I was like, oh, it's just racism, or oh, it's just patriarchy. No, those are tools or strategies to make us not rely on each other, not reach out to each other, not hold this posturing of, oh, I'm fine, or oh, I'm driving the right car, I have the right job, I wear the right clothes, so that we don't get to the heart of each other. And it's that disconnection that makes us not understand or not have compassion, because now we have these binary relationships. So we're basically talking in echo chambers. I went to 4 different community things yesterday. I was sharing, I saw Brian at the Mass Lib. Shout out to Mass Lib, doing the Harriet Tubman documentary, talking about some things. I was at Building Love Advocacy Center. But they were doing healing. I'm actually drinking my tea that I made yesterday at that event. And then I went to DSA, which is it Democratic Socialists of America.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those spaces were homogeneous for the most part. You were kind of speaking in echo chambers of people like, yeah, absolutely. And then the DSA, they were super excited because I guess Bernie Sanders is going to be in town. And
he's coming to Denver this Friday. I'm going with AOC.
Okay. Yep. He's coming to Arizona. And they were so excited, but I don't know why. Can you explain to me why people are so excited that he's coming? What do they think is what he's going to do?
Well, why I signed up was particularly AOC. I want to hear, because with the Senate just agreeing with the Republicans and passing that, I want to be around people and talking about more progressive folk. I want to see who's in my community. I want to hear issues. I want to see what I'm not paying attention to. So that's why I'm going. And
okay. Well, maybe I should consider it because I just was like, I've been figuring out, I'm in different spaces trying to think about mutual aid because I think we're going to need it. I think it's going to be very important. And I think that people are still operating like we were in 2020 or 2021. And I believe that we're in a completely different climate. I don't believe that we are in that era anymore. I think that anybody can get it. I don't even think white privilege is going to even matter. If you're standing on one side of an issue, I think we're going to see. The thing that scared me most about Gaza, to be honest, is that I saw how that could easily happen to any movement here in the States. Easy. Easy. And so I could see being silenced in that way through extreme violence. And it's happened before. It's, we act like there hasn't been bombings on the citizens in the US and there has.
Yeah. I know.
And so I'm just wondering, like, even I'm telling people in my communities, hey, before we go out and protest, we got to have a stronger strategy.
And what are you suggesting? Like, help me see what I'm not seeing.
I just think that people will have we're already seeing it. We're already seeing the people being kind of empowered to be radical on the other side. Mm-hmm. And I think that we are still following the rules of the country, which we should, but they are not following those rules. So those strategies to that, I don't think matches anymore. So we almost have to completely divest and start creating mutual aid, creating ways for us to divest out of a system that doesn't want room, that is not making space for us to figure out what will be our plan moving forward. I think we kind of take strategies from the civil rights movement, like protest and what is the other one? Boycotting.
Yep.
But they had a very strong connected strategy. And I don't think that we've always done the work to connect the strategies around an analysis, a common understanding, safety. How do we keep each other safe, especially of those who are most vulnerable? And what is going to be our overall plan to support each other as we're transitioning into this new system? Because I believe we're watching the falling of an empire. That's what I think. And we have not experienced that or have seen it on this soil. And so I think that's why a different conversation needs to be had, and not going straight to protest or going straight to these things without having an aligned strategy, because I think it's very dangerous.
So where will folks gather to do the align? I always kind of see a both and, because I'm hoping I'm meeting people this afternoon. I meet people Friday. More people are waking up. Yeah.
I was there this weekend too. I'm not saying we don't go in those spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We do still have to be in those spaces. I'm just thinking, what is our line strategy and how do we come together, knowing that we've been socialized not to come together?
Totally.
That's the difficulty, because when the uprising happened before, people were not together. To be honest, it was a lot of infighting. People went to jail and didn't have support. Like, it was a lot of things, infighting going on everywhere. So I'm just curious of what will it take? What will it take for us to come together? And I feel like this is come together over the environment. Yeah, I agree. Brian is sharing that in the chat. Come together over the environment. Come together over the preservation of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Preservation of living beings, like our plant life and our animals, and how are we going to eat and how are we going to have water? We have to have water. We have to have water, Kathy.
I join you. Our Colorado River is not going to sustain given the exploitation by these corporations. Yeah.
And so when you're dealing with a situation where people who have acquired wealth have said, well, I've acquired wealth and I can pay for whatever I need for myself, so that's on you. And we've emulated that. We have to be honest that we have perpetuated some of our experiences based on not working together and not creating those relationships. And so now we have to invest in that. And I'm thinking not even just for me, because I know I'm gonna be long and gone, Kathy. I'm thinking about my kids and my nieces and nephews, and I'm thinking about becoming a good ancestor.
Yeah. As I understand, so many Indigenous folks talk about 7 generations and decisions today and impacting. And, just to get honest, this group that I'm going to go get trained with today, I met somebody and I'm like, and I just researched them and I'm like, they're committed to race, gender, class, abolitionism, environment. And I didn't see sexuality. And I was like, and after our conversation, I'm like, I was still going to go. I'm like, you know what? This is what you're talking about. There are people doing incredible work. It may not be all the work I want them doing. But how can I be a part of, they have a community for 25. So let me go see what I can learn, be useful. And then maybe I'll nudge around sexuality, but it's faith-based. So they may have brought people together that are very clear. There might be some literal Bible or whatever they're interpreting. So I'm like, okay, so maybe as I'm speaking to other white folk, there might just be groups that you can participate, bring your brilliance, contribute, share resources, because most of us have gotten more resources than society has given to other folk or given opportunities. So how can it not be perfect and still show up? So thank you. That was a helpful grounding for me today. Thank you.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to do my ad segment, and then we'll wrap up where I'm coming to ask you some words of wisdom and encouragement as we move on in this work. And what do you have for people now in where we are? So we'll come right back. Y'all know I keep saying I don't have any I like to use double negative sometimes. I don't have no advertisement on this podcast. However, I do have wonderful people who are invested in it, and one of those people are Black River Life Media. Black River Life provides news, media, and cultural arts for African diaspora, community building, and truth-telling. They were founded in 2017 by Brian and Colette, providing free and affordable photography and videography and helping people tell their stories from their perspective. In 2024, Black River Life began transitioning to a nonprofit organization to enhance their programming, sustainability, and capacity. If you are interested in any of that or needing any of that, please reach out to Black River Life Media and reach out to them to use those resources. They have been wonderful to this podcast. One of the only reasons why I'm able to get this information or get my ideas out to you right now. And I'm so grateful. Secondly, Lotus Liberation. We are having our next System Changemaker Roundtable in March. We're looking for people to start learning and understanding about mutual aid and how mutual aid can look different based on the needs of our community. We're doing that work, but first we have to share the idea. And so on March 28th, 27th, it's on LinkedIn. I know that for sure. We're going to just start the conversation, and we'll be doing it monthly. It's open to people who want to be next system change makers or who already see themselves as next system change makers. You are welcome, and we hope you're able to join us, and we can get back to our show. Well, Kathy, what do we have for them? What you got something for them, for the people?
Well, what I love about connecting with you is I've got new ideas. This next, what'd you call it? Next generation?
Next system change makers.
I'm curious because I've had 68 years of being socialized, now healing, and I don't see, I'm feeling I just want to get this organization I'm going to is led and run by folk of color, and I'm getting more convinced that's who I want to listen to, be mentored with, work alongside of, follow. I'm not saying there aren't white organized too. So think about your privileged identities, finding groups that have been doing grassroots work for a while, and just go see how much more wisdom, ancestral wisdom there is from groups that for me, I'm still clueless around. Self-care, community care, the exhaustion, the burnout is real. I think it's intentional. This blitzkrieg that they did these last 6 weeks is intentional. It's part of the systems were created not for people in marginalized identities. And so continue to gather to look at your current community, the organization you're in, find more people to kind of awaken to say, let's change this practice, let's interrupt this microaggression. You don't have to be doing large scale systems change. Like you said, you can do it. Get teams to be more high performing and care about the humanity of everybody and inclusion. And Friday mornings, I think we're in our 5th year of doing community connections. It's 10 a.m. Mountain. That's where I first met you through Malia. And, you know, we have a small group of committed social justice, racial justice folk, and it's become a place of just come and be. We're not here to give advice. We're not teaching. It's just like, how are you doing and what do you need so you can continue your work? And every time I leave more energized with more ideas, and especially in these times when I think most of us are exhausted, overwhelmed, and don't see this next level of systems change. This might be a place, in addition to yours, that people can come and just, we've had so many folks come that are the target of the attacks against diversity, equity, inclusion. They're personally maybe losing their jobs. They're watching the systems disintegrate. And it's just a place to find connection. And again, on my website, all kinds of free resources that I hope are about self-work, self-healing, community healing, and dismantling systems through kind of workshops and worksheets. And so that's what I have for people, drkathyobear.com. You can always contact me through that if you have other ideas or what I need to keep learning.
Well, I am grateful that you are working towards being a good ancestor. And honestly, between you and Malia and Danica and people that I know that are doing this work, who also happen to be palm-colored women, you're really giving me hope in all of humanity. And so I appreciate you for that. And I thank you for giving the resources for free, because I surely was using them common behaviors, honey, with them clients. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom. And thank you for your friendship and being in community. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Y'all better have a good time for this is Women's Month. So make sure that you are supporting and talking to women of all kinds, trans women, all women. Okay, we're not gonna do that. We're not doing that. I've been watching this on the social media. The auntie and me, we ain't doing all that. All women, it's Women's Month. Enjoy them, celebrate them, and celebrate yourself. And I hope to see you in April. I'm going to be talking about in April my no spending April, where I'm going to try to not spend any money outside. Well, you know, I got to pay this mortgage, Jesus. and I got to pay to have the lights on. But outside of that, my goal is not to do any excess spending. And so I'm going to have a conversation with myself and maybe some others of what that looks like and what people are doing to conserve not only their coin, but also their happiness. Because I don't think we get any more joy from spending. And that's what I'm going to test out in the month of April. So join us next month, and we look forward to seeing you. And remember, get free so we can be free. Okay. So figure out what your get free journey is. And I look forward to seeing you next time. All right. Bye.